3, 2, 1, action!
Hi, and welcome to another My Kids Locker Empathy Tale. This is Victoria Wolders, and I am going to share with you another empathy tale. Our attempt through empathy tales is to create compassion one story at a time. And each of these stories were uniquely shared at my kids' bedside. The focus of these empathy tales is to help create compassion, kindness, and care, in addition to perspective taking as well. We hope that you enjoy the story, and I hope that you come to a deeper understanding of what perspective taking is. This story today is called The Kaleidoscope Giant. Well, if you're ready, then will begin. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in the Oak and Eagle Kingdom, there lived a giant who lived in the giant's village, in the land of the Eastern Eagle. This village was very happy. They cared for each other. Each of the giants were doing well because they each had jobs and they each really appreciated each other. However, there was one giant in the village that was a little different than everyone else. He had black hair and he had black eyes. He was much shorter than everyone else. So what would often happen would be the giants would bully him, and they would say, "Oh, you should be with the humans," or maybe you should be with the fairies because you're way too short. Your hair should be like ours. We are all blonde and brown, but your hair is black. It shouldn't be black. The giant soon became known as the Black Giant. The Black Giant became sad because he started to think that he was not good enough. He was unique. He wasn't the same as everyone else. Over a period of time, he decided that he was going to live outside the giant's village. He decided to build his cottage just outside the village walls. One day, a fairy was going by, and the fairy came up to the Black Giant. And she said, "Black Giant, why are you here? All giants are supposed to be in the giant's village." The Black Giant turned his face to the ground, and he said, "I am not welcomed. I am not welcomed in the village because I am different. No one really likes me. I sometimes go into the village at night time, and I will meet up with a few people who will give me food and clothing. Then I return to the outskirts of the village so that I can live in peace and survive outside the village walls." The fairy said, "I'm so sad for you that you can't be with your people because of the way people have treated you. You are different. You are unique. Because of your black hair and your black eyes, it doesn't mean you're less than a person." The Black Giant began to cry. "Well, I feel that I am different. I don't look like them. I don't sound like them. I don't act like them." The fairy looked up at the Black Giant. "Oh, you are so precious and so unique, and I wish you could see how beautiful that is. You are so amazing. You know, you should always remember that. We are all different and we're all unique. We used to appreciate each other's uniqueness, but somehow people began to decide that there was a certain expectation on how people should look, act, and even feel." She said, "I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to give you a kaleidoscope. This is a magical kaleidoscope, and the magical kaleidoscope will help you see yourself as well as others. You will see the beauty in yourself if you pull the kaleidoscope up to your eye and you turn to a mirror. You will see something truly beautiful." The black giant gently took the magical kaleidoscope from the fairy. He held up the magical kaleidoscope and turned to a large mirror he had on the wall of his cottage. He held it up, he looked at himself, and he just saw so much light and beautiful, glistening sparkles. He noticed his black hair glistening. He noticed his goodness being shone through the mirror. He came to an understanding that he needs to be grateful for the wonderful giftings he has and for his black hair and black eyes. He decided to say to the fairy, "I'd like to share this gift with other people." She said, "Oh well, the only thing is that there are people who have hardened hearts. Their hearts have become this way because of the hatred they hold in their hearts. If they hold the kaleidoscope up to their eye and stand in front of a mirror, they will see what is in their heart." The black giant said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Well, when someone has a hard heart, they often don't see things the way that other people should see them. They don't appreciate diversity. They lack gratitude. It's because they view diversity as something that is out of their control. There is shame that is rooted in their hearts, and shame is very difficult to remove if it continues to be nurtured. They have come to think that there was only one way of seeing, yet there are so many different perspectives in the world, and they lose out on connection because they are so rooted in their control." The kaleidoscope, this magical kaleidoscope, allows you to appreciate perspective. It allows you to be courageous and brave. To know that you have so many good things in your life is amazing. If you choose to give it to other people who have soft hearts or hard hearts, they will see what's truly in their heart. If they are angry, they are going to see anger. If they are loving, they're going to see love. The black giant wondered, what are they going to see? I wonder what is going to happen when they see their hearts. The fairy looked at him. They will look at themselves, and sometimes they will see stone. They will just see stone. Because over time, that shame and the desire for control allows them to have a shield of stone over their body. And what happens is they choose not to feel, and they choose not to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity and innovation. It is also the birthplace of courage and bravery. And when shame continues to leach into someone's soul, it will harden them, and they will see a stone statue. The fairy continued, "You have to be very careful about who you give this kaleidoscope to, because what will happen if they will turn to stone once they look into the kaleidoscope? Then there could be issues with them turning back into being fully human." The black giant said, "I'm sure there is no one in our village that has a hardened heart so much that when they look through the kaleidoscope into a mirror, they will turn completely into stone. Yep, there might be a little bit of hatred, but I can't imagine anyone being so hardened by shame and control that they turn completely to stone." She looked at him in a graceful way and said, "I really appreciate the fact that you are hopeful and you choose to look at your peers in such a hopeful way. If you choose to give the kaleidoscope to another person, and that person takes it to their eye and looks into a mirror, if that person turns into stone, the only way to be able to heal them is for someone who has a soft heart and a brave heart to look through the kaleidoscope and look at them. If that person has enough love, empathy, and compassion, and shares their heart with the person who has now become stone, then the stones will fall away and will crush into dust. He decided the next day that he was going to go into the village, and he was going to go in daylight. He was going to bring his kaleidoscope. The black giant walked through the village. He moved the kaleidoscope up to his eye, and he looked at the baker. He was just amazing. He was beautiful, and he was glowing. The baker had such a wonderful heart. He saw some children playing and said, "Oh, I'm going to put my kaleidoscope up to my eye and see them." And once again, they were beautiful and glowing. He saw such beauty in them, only through the kaleidoscope. The giant decided to walk through the market. He decided to put the kaleidoscope down in order to purchase some apples. Just then, as he was picking up the apples, another giant who had bullied him in the past walked by. The black giant turned his head away. Yet, when he turned back, the bully had taken the kaleidoscope. The giant, who was known to bully, said, "I wonder what this is." He picked it up and he looked at himself in a hanging mirror that was very close to the market. All of a sudden, he turned to stone. There wasn't that many people around in this area of the market. The black giant was stunned. How could this happen? And how could he decide to put down the kaleidoscope to pick up apples? And he thought to himself, if the bully stays like this, then perhaps other people may see the stone statue, and this could be a problem. The black giant realized that this other giant really wasn't a bully, but he suffered from the shame and the issues of hatred. This other giant really just needed compassion and needed kindness in his heart, and most of all, forgiveness. The sun was setting, and people were going back into their cottages. Because of where the statue was, the giant was not seen. The black giant decided to take the kaleidoscope, and he decided to go back home without doing anything. However, that night he couldn't sleep. He felt so bad. So in the middle of the night, he woke up and he walked into the village, and there was no one around. It was completely silent. He walked on the cobblestone streets. There, in the corner, was the stone statue. The stone statue of someone who had bullied him. He was all stone. The black giant took the kaleidoscope and lifted it to his eyes. Just at that very moment, as he looked through the kaleidoscope, he saw the stone body crumble. And as it was crumbling, the black giant remembered compassion, empathy, and kindness. And as the stone crumbled to the ground, the black giant continued to not only think of positive messages, but also share them. You are kind, you are courageous, you are brave, you are forgiven. The giant of the night believed the best in this stone statue, and the stone statue became human. The black giant had forgiven him. Underneath, there was a man who was glowing. The black giant would no longer call him a bully anymore, but he'd call him forgiven. The black giant looked at him and said, "Your name from now on will be forgiven, and people throughout our village will know that you have been forgiven by all. If you continue with your forgiveness, you will also be able to give forgiveness to other people, and you will no longer need to worry about turning into stone again." Forgiven looked at him and said, "I just feel like all my anger and all my hatred, jealousy and rage dissolved." The giant of the night looked at him. There were still some fragments that were around him and on his shoulders and his clothing. The giant of the night said, "I believe in you. I want you to know that you have hurt me, yet I know you have pain. I forgive you." Forgiven looked up at the black giant and dusted off the stone from his shoulders. "We will now name you the Kaleidoscope Giant instead of the black giant." The Kaleidoscope Giant looked at Forgiven, and they hugged each other. There was peace. Forgiven looked at the Kaleidoscope Giant and said, "I'm sorry. I realized that I was wrong. I should have never treated you the way I treated you in the past. Thank you so much for your forgiveness. If it wasn't for you, I would be a stone statue." The Kaleidoscope Giant and Forgiven knew from that point on that they would continue to be better friends, and they would care for each other. They would also together travel the lands with this magical kaleidoscope and help others with their pain. Also, to teach others of their gifts of kindness, compassion, and empathy. Both of them, over the years, became courageous and brave, and it was to do with the beautiful heart of the Kaleidoscope Giant. The end. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for another empathy tale, The Kaleidoscope Giant. I hope that you can connect with me through my website at mykidslocker.com. I would love to hear any suggestions you have about any ideas for the Oak and Eagle Kingdom. And I hope that today this message resonates with you. It allows you to be able to think deep about messages of what truly forgiveness is and what empathy is. And I hope today you will create compassion one story at a time. Thank you for joining us, and I hope I see you next time. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.